Hey guys, this is Tyler here, and it is late March. I'm going to discuss here some lessons that I've learned and that everyone here can learn from some business failures. This is really critical and something that will actually help people, whether it's in work, in personal life, whatever it may be, to go through tough experiences and eventually build on that and actually use it to your advantage. And what you may also learn is that these small setbacks earlier on are actually better because long term, when you face bigger hurdles or situations where much more is on the line, you'll be better equipped to get through those instances, and always better often to learn sooner than later. Okay, I've spoken before about some of my business ventures and experience before. There's some very noteworthy ups and downs, huge hurdles that I've gone through, and one of those, for example, was a multi-million-dollar technology smartwatch brand that I essentially had fundraised. I crowdfunded with my brother. We were raising funds for this company through Kickstarter, and eventually the campaign was shut down through some misunderstanding on Kickstarter's end, and it was very unfair. It was very unnecessary, but this is what happened. At that point in time, 2 to 3 years ago, Kickstarter was becoming very harsh on these campaigns, and this was happening very frequently. They were shutting down campaigns, and if anyone knows the current state of Kickstarter right now, they're in a pretty bad state. And I suspect this is one of the reasons why. They're shutting down very legitimate campaigns, and then other crowdfunding rounds they're letting continue that are very illegitimate. So it's very confusing. And so people who've gone through this, I mean, in this case, it was the campaign itself was 6 figures worth of lost funds. Both directly and indirectly, it was 7 figures worth of losses from this because there were some wholesale contracts about to be signed, and unfortunately, because they saw the campaign shut down, they had questions, these companies on their end, about why it was shut down, and it gave a bad image to our brand, unfortunately. This brand, I mean, this would have been very successful. I imagine that we would have had by now at least 8 or even 9 figures of turnover. We had actually some other concepts that we were going to pursue that also would have had huge potential. We were going to do like a branch. One of the branches was going to be like a crypto investment, institutional investment wing. So we were going to allot, like, say, a couple $1 million to crypto investments. This was around 2018, mind you, in 2019. And I can only imagine, I mean, if where those investments would have gone. So we had really cool things in the pipeline that we're going to pursue. And really, we didn't need a lot of funds. I mean, a lot of these companies, they have tens, hundreds of $1 million of investment money coming in, and they still fail. We only needed like 7 or high 6 figures, and we would have been good to go. But unfortunately, we were shut down. And I've had other instances of failures, not as extreme as this. I've done some online book publishing that didn't go very far. I've pursued some other business types and ventures where I perhaps made 20, 100, maybe even a few $100s, and then just declared it not worth it, or it was a non-viable business model, that something that couldn't scale or become bigger or be consistent stream of revenue. So I learned from these experiences how to repivot and to make adjustments. I had an experience, for example, when I was 17, I was doing boat detailing at the time for some clients. I was living up in Minnesota. There's a lot of lakes. Minnesota is actually the land of 10,000 lakes, if anyone lives up there. And I lived in the northwestern part of the state. There were a lot of lakes around there, and I did some boat detailing. And one of my clients actually was going to pay me a set sum of money, and what ended up happening is I got kind of screwed over. He only paid me like 2/3. And honestly, at the time, the rate that he was charging was really low. I mean, most of the detailing, they were charging at least 2 or 3 times more than what he was going to originally pay me. So it was honestly really low in price from the get-go. And sadly enough, the guy was like a retired orthopedic surgeon. He was like in his 80s at the time. He had plenty of money. He was a multimillionaire, but he kind of ripped me off for some reason. It was a really stellar job I did. And I learned from that also on the importance of requiring so much funds beforehand and having better contracts in place if I go that route. And also the importance, if you're being paid in cash, to be aware that you can be kind of screwed over on the back end. Sometimes having a electronic payment is better because you have a better record system there. I had other experiences, as I mentioned before, like with some book publishing. I thought that I could publish some books, and one of the 2 books I published, since I published them on Amazon, I've since removed them. They're not there anymore. I only made on one, I think I made like $12. On the other, I made like maybe $45 or something. I really underestimated, honestly, how successful they would be. But at the same time, I didn't know if I would make any money. One thing I will say, though, is that some of these online outlets, these third parties, whether it's to publish books, sell courses, sell classes, products, services, they can serve a purpose if you know what you're doing and you use them the right way. I will say that much. You can get those initial eyeballs, but at the same time, you still have to build on a strong brand. You have to have product or service that sets you apart. And also with that, you also will probably command more money for the product or service. That's generally how it works. So that didn't go so successful. I knew I couldn't scale that to a large size. Anyone that's worked in self-authoring knows that it's very challenging, and only a handful of authors can actually make a viable living full-time from this field. This is not actually a very lucrative field for most people. And also, I've learned that if you want to, say, like, promote a product or service, especially books, first create a big media presence through video streaming, through like YouTube or any video streaming service, and then try sell your product, service, or book that way. You're probably actually going to do a lot better. There's some really good examples here. People may know about Sean Atwood, very well known on YouTube now, from England, and he was first hammered at his YouTube channel, and then he started doing book publishing. He had published books prior to his YouTube channel, and he didn't sell nearly as much as after he gained a big following. And there's many other cases of this out there, but you'll learn by having these experiences, these situations. You build upon that and know how to kind of capitalize the following instances, and both not make the same mistakes and know effectively the steps to take to have a successful business and brand. Because often this is just how it is. Often your first 2, 3, maybe 5 business ventures, whether it's product, service, probably won't be successful. Especially nowadays, it probably won't be actually. It takes some subsequent tries before you have one that works, or you have 2 or 3 that work and have consistent revenue, good revenue that pays over time. It's just the climate we live in. It's very competitive environment, competitive world, and you have to be aware of that. Also, have your legal uncovered exceptionally well. I mean, if once you reach a certain threshold, whether it's $500,000, $1 million, you really should make sure that legal one is well handled, because you don't want to deal with a lawsuit, have product or service problems, or your business be shut down, especially when you're selling on third-party platforms. Like I myself am selling Udemy courses, people may know, within tax planning and within investment planning for taxes, and also blockchain. These are some of my expertise. if you saw on these platforms, often a lot of the legal problems are covered by the platform, by the company. They do a lot of pre-screening, and you probably wouldn't get approved in the first place with your product or service. But if you're selling on your own website, your own platform, you have to be a lot more aware of this and make sure that's covered, especially if you're making some serious money. It's well worth it, because you could end up getting a big lawsuit or have problems with the product. There can be a lot of safety issues or whatever. And even on the platforms, make sure that you have also kind of redundancy, be on another platform or have your own website if those platforms do shut you down, because there's cases like of people, say on Udemy, that have reached certain number. Amazon, they reach like several $1 million, and then Amazon removes them. Very common with these platforms. And so you want to have a built-up following on a different website to get those people to come over, because anything can happen and you could lose your presence overnight. So always be aware of that. But the main ideal here is that whether it's your second, third, fourth, 10th, you got to be willing to rebound and use that experience to just capitalize. Be willing to see what works, and eventually you'll have success with something. Lastly, focus on science, engineering, more advanced areas. These are often the industries where there's a lot open market. There's a lot more potential, typically. If you're in it for the long game, this will probably pay off much bigger dividends. So that's my word for you, and give me your feedback below. Thank you.